Hi everybody, it's Lisa. Just wanted to drop in here today and talk about some psychic stuff. We've been talking about Reiki a lot, but this is psychic Reiki. So I wanted to throw some psychic into the conversation today and talk to you guys about my take on clairvoyance. So I'm going to do a little series in here about the psychic gifts, like what our psychic gifts are, how we experience them, and how we can fold them into our Reiki practices. I think that's an important part of it. And what I really wanted to talk about today was the psychic gift of clairvoyance, which is psychic sight, So really our psychic ability comes through all of our available senses, like every one of the senses that we have can pick up extrasensory perception, extra information that will come through that channel. And a lot of times for most people, our psychic senses it's like your inner eye for clairvoyance, for the visual psychic. So I'm a visual psychic, and I rarely see things with my actual eyes. And when I do, I really don't like it. It's like hard and scary for me. And when I was little, it used to really freak me out to see things with my actual eyes. So I didn't like that. And I think I shut it off when I was little. And there are people who can actually see things with their real eyes, see spirits and color and everything. And I mean with their real eyes, and when you do that, you experience a spirit like a person standing there, like you see something physical. And that does happen on occasion, and there are a few people that have that sort of as their full-time gig, which I think is kind of crappy. Like, it's not my favorite one. So a lot of times what we're really experiencing is in what I call our imagination eye, our psychic eye. And oddly enough, one of the best ways to train our psychic vision is to shut our physical eyes. So like if you want to, for example, if you want to learn to see auras, what you do is you have somebody stand up against a white wall or a light colored wall, and you look at them and you squint your eyes to try that. Look out of your peripheral vision, because a lot of times our psychic vision is much more accurate with our peripheral vision. And maybe if you have this gift, you've seen things from out of the corner of your eye, you turn your head and there's nothing there. That's really common. So if you want to see somebody's aura, you can turn and look with your peripheral vision. And then the best thing to do really is to close your eyes. So keep the person standing there, but close your eyes and then look with your inner eye, your psychic eye. And your psychic eye is very connected to the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is literally like your third eye. And it's a very interesting part of our brain. It has optic nerves in it, even though it's like dead center in our brain. And it connects us really to spiritual vision, it has the ability to see light. So it's very affected by light, literally by light. So when light comes into our eyes, it can activate our pineal gland. And that's why the blue light of the computer is pretty tough on our pineal glands. Looking at especially blue light right before you go to bed can be very hard for this, can be very damaging to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is also part of our circadian rhythm. So we can throw off our circadian rhythm by looking at this blue light right before we go to bed. Watching TV, being on your phone, on your iPad right before bed can sort of mess this one up. And so can things like fluoride, bromide, heavy metals can shut down our pineal gland. And things like meditation open it. Sunlight, actually, like, I'm not saying look into the sun because that's not good for your eyes, but getting a little sunlight, drive around in the car with your sunglasses off for a few minutes every day. And I think in the future we're going to be seeing a lot more of people using blue light filtering glasses, blue light filtering screens on your devices to filter out that blue light. It's really not great for your brain and your pineal gland and your psychic vision, I think. So one of the more interesting things about clairvoyance that I don't hear people talk about very often is that it often starts for people when people have clairvoyance. I always want to say congratulations and I'm sorry, because I think it's a difficult gift. And the aspect of it that I think is difficult and doesn't get talked about is that true clairvoyance isn't necessarily about seeing things that other people can't see. More often it's about seeing the truth. It's about seeing what's real. Clairvoyant people, even when they're not having a psychic experience, see what's really going on. And this is a very difficult gift in a world where most people don't see reality. So, you know the story of the emperor's new clothes. Like, there's that one little kid, the emperor's romping around naked, thinks he's wearing these clothes, and that one little kid who says, I think he's naked. Like, that's clairvoyance. Clairvoyant, and especially clairvoyant children, will see through bullshit, or see through, like, you know, the words that you're saying to what you really mean. That's an aspect of clairvoyance. Or to see, like, the energetic reality, the spiritual reality, the emotional reality, that gets overlaid with kind of the craziness that we throw on there. So let's say, for example, you're a little kid and you see like some weird pattern in your family, or some strange energy between your parents, or something creepy in your family dynamic, and you see it for real, like you get it, and then you ask your kid, you know, your parents, like, what's going on with Uncle Fred? Like, what's the matter with Uncle Fred? And they're like, oh, Uncle Fred's fine, no problem. You know, a clairvoyant person, a child, will see that that's not true. They see the reality of what's happening. So real clairvoyance, for people that have that level of it, can be a very isolating experience. So let's say that you're I don't know how common it is, like 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 200 people have this gift. So let's say you're in a room full of 100 people. You might be the only one that sees what's really going on. And other people might feel it, other people might sense the emotion of it, other people might hear the truth, but the clairvoyant person is going to see, like, kind of get it in a very visual way. So I think that's the baseline of clairvoyance. And then the psychic gifts, the psychic sight, things that we have where we see colors around people, or we're seeing spirits, or we have, that's kind of added on. It's like an add-on layer on top of this foundation of, you see reality the way it is. And that will make you feel like a crazy person. Like, you're the one that's taking crazy pills if you're that one person in a room of 100 or 200 people that are like, no, the emperor's, those are fine new clothes the emperor has, and you're like, what? You know? So I think it's a struggle for people that have this gift to figure out what to do with it, you know? Then also clairvoyant people, or people with a strong visual psychic, are usually very visual. Like, we're artists, we like visual art, we like visual stimulation. The people usually are strong dreamers, so you probably have a very intense visual dreams. You remember your dreams, things come to you in dreams, because dreaming is a strong way to connect to our visual psychic. So I think it's a tricky one, and it's one of the harder ones to deal with. One of the things that's tricky about it is that because it's connected to our sixth chakra and our mind, and our sights, it has to filter through our mind. Like, there are many other psychic senses that are much more reliably accurate, like claircognizance, or that's the knowing. You don't know why you know, you just know. Or the body knowing, the kinesthetic psychic, really much more accurate. And it's often because we have to filter this through our mind, and our mind is kind of tricky, that this is the one that, if you have to really monitor this one to make sure you're picking up, like, accurate data, or that you're understanding how to interpret it, because you might be getting an accurate sight, but we don't know how to interpret it. And that's the hardest thing, I think, to learn, how to reliably interpret it. And the best answer I can give you for that is, don't try to interpret it. Like, if I'm doing psychic readings for people and I see weird things, I see things I don't understand, I tell them exactly what I'm seeing without trying to interpret it, because that's where our mind gets in and can spin us around, and we kind of can get off track. So if you want to develop this gift, paying attention to visions when you get it, I always recommend sort of the psychic journal. So when you have a psychic vision, or you're seeing things, write it down. What we write down and what we pay attention to gets bigger. Write down your dreams. Write them all down in the same place. Like, get a little psychic journal going on. Meditation is a fabulous practice to strengthen this one. And if you're doing Reiki with people too, you might really notice that you're seeing colors around people. So you're seeing colors when you're getting or receiving an attunement, or when you're doing a treatment on somebody. I've heard Reiki people say they see colors around their own hands when they're giving Reiki, or they see colors around the people's body when they're doing Reiki treatments. And that it does take a little bit. Maybe I'll do another video about how to interpret that stuff, because it can mean different things. Sometimes we're seeing the chakras. Sometimes we're seeing emotions, because emotions have colors. Chakras have colors. Sometimes we're seeing our guides. Sometimes we're seeing the guides of our clients. So it's not always immediately obvious what we're seeing when we see colors. But I do think that's one of the first things that happens to Reiki people who have strong visual psychic ability, and they start practicing a lot of Reiki. And also, you guys know that studying Reiki totally makes your psychic stronger, right? Which is why I wrote my book, The Art of Psychic Reiki, in the first place. You want to see it? Here it is. Isn't it pretty? I really like it. So when, especially Reiki to level 2. So Reiki, when you learn the Reiki symbols at level 2, Seihei Ki seems to be a symbol that really activates your pineal gland and really opens your pineal gland a lot. So no matter where you are in the psychic spectrum, when you study Reiki and you learn it and you practice it more, it's going to open up your psychic stuff. And so are a lot of the other things that we do in the world, like yoga, meditation, Reiki, these sort of entry. I always think of them as the gateways into a bigger spiritual world. Many people do them, and it opens us. If you have psychic capacity or talent, it's going to increase it, which I think is good. And it needs training. So it can be crazy making or scary for people if their psychic opens and they don't understand what it is, or they have a lot of fear about it, or it's against what their religion taught them they should happen. Like there are religions that really will sort of preach it heavy, like that psychics are bad, and it's wrong and it's evil. And I understand in a way why they do that, because there's certain psychic activities that are dangerous in the wrong hands or done by people who don't know what they're doing. So I get it why they say that, but it puts sort of a lot of baggage into the mix around people who have gifts and get very freaked out when their gifts start opening. And I mean, I always say, like, if you have gifts and they're opening, we have to choose. You have to choose. Are you going to allow that to open? Are you going to train it? Or are you going to shut it down? And my strong advice or opinion, it's just my opinion, and based on having watched a lot of people do this over the 20 years I've been teaching psychic development and energy medicine, is that people, if first of all, our gifts are on purpose. Like, we don't get gifts we're not supposed to use in some way. We have to figure out what they're for. We have to find a way to use them that feels comfortable to us. And then we have to study, we have to learn. And the more we learn, the more we can control our gifts, the more we master our gifts, really, is what we have to do. The easier it is, the more confidence we have, the less dangerous it is, the more at peace we can be with them. And it's the people with a very, very strong psychic ability that really shut it down hard that tend to go a little wonky. And then it kind of sneaks out sideways. And creates problems in our life, and it's difficult. And it's kind of really so what happens in the long run with people that have extreme psychic gifts and haven't done the inner work of balancing ourselves and training ourselves, is that, like, extreme clairvoyance is like psychosis. It's like hallucinations and delusions. And sadly, I see that a lot with people that are very psychic and have had tons of trauma. So if you have a lot of trauma, or you have a history of mental illness in your family, and you throw that in with a person that's very strongly psychic into that, you can really go down a very challenging path that way. And I often work with people that are struggling right on that edge. Like, I always say there's only a few letters difference between psychic and psychotic, and that sometimes it goes that way. If there's a ton of trauma, it can kind of crack our third eye, and really, or people get very lost in the dimensions, where they're not able to keep themselves in the now space. They're not grounded, and it's very frightening, upsetting for them too. So anyway, that's my thoughts on clairvoyance today. I'd love for you guys to chat about it and talk about it in the group. I'd love to hear how you experienced clairvoyance. Is it through dreams? Is it through seeing colors? Do you see spirits? Because a lot of clairvoyant people do. And there is often a connection between clairvoyance and mediumship, although not 100%, like those gifts can mingle in any way that they do. How are you experiencing it? And what do you do about it? Are you afraid of it? Do you train it? And would you like to? That's kind of what have you done? Like, let's share our experience around this. And I'll pop in here a few days from now, probably end of the week on Friday, and we'll talk about clairaudience, which is the auditory one. It's more common. It's not as gnarly. It's a little easier to deal with. And the other thing, actually, before I go, that I really want to say about clairvoyance is that it's sad to me that a lot of people that I meet tell me they're not psychic because they think that psychic and clairvoyance is the same thing. So they couldn't possibly be psychic because they're not seeing things, or they're not a visual psychic. And I think it's the media, the way that media portrays psychics on TV, psychics in movies, are usually visual psychics. So people have learned to, relate those like they're the same thing, and they're really not. I would love it if we could change our vocabulary on this so that if we go to perceive instead of see, because perceiving opens our self to experiencing through all of our senses. It's much more accurate. So, you could be doing a Reiki session and have your client say, what do you perceive? I've heard this actually at a Reiki share where there's a Reiki person there. She's not a visual psychic. She's auditory, kinesthetic, and a deep, deep feeler. And she's receiving a ton of information about this client. And the client says to her, rolls off the table and said, what do you see? And this poor lady said, I'm not psychic. I didn't see anything. And I was like, whoa, like you totally did. Like she got like a boatload of information for her client and just denied it, like couldn't own it because she didn't see anything. And if we had just been able to change that to perceive, she might have been able to say, well, I felt this and I knew this and I heard this. And that's what I want. That's what I want to change that vocabulary so that we all know, because this is a more rare one. It's tricky, it's more rare, it's harder to train, it's harder to get accurate with it. So everyone thinks they want it. And I'm telling you, when I teach psychic development classes, there's a whole room full of people who are like, please help me open my psychic gifts. And then there's the one or two visual psychics, especially with extreme visual psychic gifts that are like, make it go away. Like, give me the off switch because I need to turn this off. Like, it might not be the one you really think that you want. Okay? So anyway, thank you so much for dropping in here today. I will see you guys let's chat about it because this is an awesome conversation. I want to hear what you think. And I will be here again on Friday, and we're going to talk about the auditory and what we do about it, how we get it, how we experience it. Thanks, guys, for being here. Bye.